Hello, and welcome to my Fire Emblem 15 ETC playthrough. I'm US's Gordon Captain here with,
Jumpy 23.
and you're watching me plunder Desai's fortress.
Yes. As is apparently tradition, I'm here for some map movement and boring parts.
So here we get the Royal Sword. The Royal Sword's actually primary purpose in some people's playthroughs is to use it as another Blessed Ring for Silk, but I like to use just the Blessed Ring. Is the only unit that's going to be able to wield that. We get the Cog, which makes it a lot easier to rig stuff because it increases the odds that we have more cogs, and it makes it less annoying to have a 95 displayed hit miss because you can just reset.
Right, this game starts off with 3 turn wheels and it feels pretty terrible to have to use one, and it ends with 12 and you're just pissing them away for no reason. We also
Here
picked
we
up Matilda,
yeah. Here we picked up
who,
Matilda. Matilda is really bad bulk because her armor apparently didn't just left her chest completely exposed.
right, my theory is Clive is just like wearing ridiculous amounts of armor, and I think he just stole some of hers from her wardrobe and she had to ride out without it. The alternative theory is that the people who made SOV are misogynist. So I'm gonna go with mine.
The other alternative is Clive is horny and likes being horny with Matilda on the battlefield, which their supports do in fact reference quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that might be the same alternative theory. Um,
And
but she does have really good speed base, which lets her double some things that Clive can't. She starts with 12 speed. The Paladin base is 8, and Clive's going to be sticking pretty close to that all the way up until he promotes to Gold Knight. But Clive's bulk is so much better that he's still, and has got a level lead, so he's closer to promoting, so he's still far and away a better unit than Matilda.
here we're doing something called hover rigging. We've been doing it for a while, but the basic theory is that when you have a map spawn like this, if you hover over enemy, it sometimes moves the RNG so that you can go and not get the enemy to spawn. It's not very consistent, as you can tell, but it's the best we can do.
This was discovered earlier this year. We used to think that there was no way to avoid map spawns because um if you just like get a map spawn, save and reset and move, you will always get that map spawn again. But then Juan776 was like, "Hey guys, I found this weird thing in SOV, and so now we can rig map spawns out of the game, and these don't cost any ETC because we're rigging them away on turn -1 before the combat has even begun."
Yes, and the limit as x approaches zero of 0 divided by x is equal to 0.
Right. In other words, as long as we keep resetting on turn 0, no matter how many times we reset, it still costs 0 turns for the obvious reason that we're not using any turns to reset.
So
But
then
we finally made it all the way to the Forger.
we gave the Pegasus cheese to the Zofia Castle cheese taster. You don't actually need to get the Rian shield to get the exotic spice. You actually need to give a Pegasus cheese to get the exotic spice. Many people treat those two quest lines as one quest line, but they're actually two separate quest lines that you can exploit.
Right,
This
that's not
is
the only Pegasus cheese in the game, and we really want to keep the Ryan Shield because it gives Madge, which is warp range. Um, so we're never gonna cash in that Pegasus cheese.
So now we get to the forest village, and we're going to be forging two major items. The first is a Rider's Bane. So normally, people I recommended previously to forge a 3-star Rider's Bane and a 2-star Killer Bow, and you would take this 2-star Killer Bow with you all the way to 3-7, and then use the money you got from 3-7 and Sylvain Shrine to turn that into a 3-star Killer Bow. Here, what I do instead is I'm forging a 2-star Rider's Bane. and I'm gonna forge a 2-star killer bow, but that's actually mostly an accounting thing. It's not actually good yet. And then I'm going to need to forge a second star on my killer bow using the. I'm going to need to forge a third star on my killer bow with the gold you get from Sylvain Shrine.
We could have kept one more gold, but then we wouldn't have had enough silver, so it's 6 one way, half dozen the other in the end. We might have needed to forge more points on our steel lance or steel sword there if Clive and Cliff had less attack for this upcoming map, but they both had enough attack that we could only get away with 3 stars on each. That would have just been like sell some more food, sell some weapons we're not using, nothing important.
Yes. It's sort of one of those interesting issues with modern Fire Emblem games when it comes to like binomials. It's like, well, Clive could get screwed and I'm fine. Cliff can get screwed and I'm fine. Both of them getting screwed simultaneously is fine.
Right. But now we're getting screwed trying to rig map spawns away, which is
Yes.
not fine. It makes the video longer. I asked Gordon if he wanted to just edit out the map spawns, but his answer was
No, because it needs to show exactly how much actually goes on. And also, it would create a bad video file because it would be a bunch of random jump cuts for no reason. Would not look like I'm smoothly going from one space, which admittedly I'm not doing here.
yeah, but now you get to see how the sausage is made. Doesn't it make you want to LTC this game?
This is better than the previous method where we just dealt with map spawns.
It's also better than the method that existed for a short time where we realized that you could enter a dungeon to rig map spawns away. Um, which you can see in one of Chungler's videos on his YouTube.
Yes. This forging route was actually brought to you by the Chungler. He explained to me how you can just forge a steel lance so Clive can one round enemies in 3-5, since 3-5 enemies are actually really bad.
Right,
That's
so
the
the
next.
deal with the +2 Rider's Bane versus a +3 is +3 removes 1 weight, and Clive needs that -1 weight to double the calves in this next map, and he needs to double them to kill them. So we always thought, we need to forge off that weight, uh, but their bulk is actually bad enough that you don't need a Rider's Bane to kill them at all. And that's where the +3 Steel Lance comes in, and then we don't need to forge the weight off the Rider's Bane.
Yes. So now we're just getting ready to see into the future. So when you're right before a map, what you can do is you can press wait on the world map screen and then attack the enemy calves. And if wait on the world map screen resulted in no enemy spawning, you can reset and then charge. And you should be good. However, sometimes that doesn't work for some reason. And so what I almost never save on a in the middle of a battle right after a battle.
Right, because you might have to redo the whole battle if the map spawn shows up. That's really fun. At least this battle is really reliable.
Yeah, this is probably the single easiest map in the whole game.
There's
It
no
reminds me a
witches
lot of
too.
playing Radiant Dawn
Right,
because
if you've ever put Har in the middle of an entire formation of enemies and just watched them die on him, this will remind you a lot of that. Except for we don't even have to use Har, we can use some stupid jobber. The stupid jobbers in this case being Clive and Cliff, who need XP because they both want to promote before Act 4.
Cliff is going to need all the kills on this map total in order to gain enough EXP so he can get to level 10 before the next map.
The kill's on the right side of this map.
Yeah. The reason we need Cliff to get all these kills all 10 of those kills. Obviously, it's just because of EXP. But also, Myrmidon is a really bad class. Cliff has mostly been getting away with this because in the first half of the game, he had access to the lightning sword, which is a really powerful weapon. But the lightning sword is sort of falling off now and is not as good as a weapon as it used to be. And so
So we're
instead,
getting out of Myrmidon ASAP.
yeah. We're going from Myrmidon to the far better class of Dreadfighter, which, unlike Myrmidon, is not a 5 move 1 range lock unit, is a 7 move sword locked unit, which is a
That
lot
definitely
better.
makes a difference.
Cliff is mostly living off of the snowball effect from having used the lightning sword for so long, making him a much better combat unit. And here I had to Luthier got crit, so I didn't want Luthier to get crit.
Yeah, he needed at least 1 HP remaining so he could get a kill. We send Luthier up there to bait that one cav away, because otherwise it would go for Matilda, and Matilda's bulk is so bad she will actually die on this map if that happens. She needs to fight like 4 calves or something, and that's just one too many. So Luthier takes one of them away so that Matilda doesn't die.
And here we see Claire continuing her uttered supremacy and taking another thing that no one else can do, which is she blocks the heal tile.
Right. Matilda crits there, which steals XP from Clive, so we rig that away. Which counteracts my earlier point where I said Matilda is bad, because stealing XP means she is a Jagan, which means she is good. She joins as a paladin and steals XP. But yeah, Claire, unique flight, unique blocking the heal tile, so these calves will suicide into Cliff instead of running away. And that saves a turn.
And as you can tell, sorry, Matilda got to exactly 1 HP. So if she got hit by any of these other, she would have just died.
Right. And that was the map. That was the combat of this entire video. So now we get more map movement and dungeon delving, which is what we're doing next.
So this dungeon delve was actually based on a previous recording, which used a slightly different clear, which got Lucas a level. That's not the clear I was going to use for the actual run, but unfortunately, the video file for the other dungeon stealth segment was really bad. So I decided to use this dungeon stealth segment instead, which does the exact same thing.
Right. The only
Except
difference is
Lucas
we're going to promote Lucas, so just ignore that that happens. The soldier map sprite is better than the knight map sprite anyway, so you can pretend that it was for this reason that we redid everything.
So, Cliff promoting to Dreadfighter. Cliff's bases are actually near Dreadfighter class bases. So even though it looks like, oh my god, Dreadfighter gave him nothing, he actually just got Mondo blessed, just like he did in Myrmidon.
Yeah, we said this exact same thing before 1.7, but this Cliff is ridiculously roided. Normally, Dreadfighter is a huge promotion that gives like 3 attack.
Yes. And here Lucas gets the Knight promotion. Now, Knight is actually a really good promotion. Unfortunately, Lucas is not a very good Knight because Knight class speed base is lower than Soldier class speed base. And so Knights are only really good if they have extra speed. Like Soldier Tobin and Forsyth are pretty good because they have good speed bases. And then Cliff is actually a pretty good soldier because he has really good speed growth.
Right. Now we're going back to root out some side quests from like the village and stuff. We try and read the wall here, but apparently we haven't sent enough.
Yes, we couldn't read Mene Mene Teku Farsha. For some reason, you have to activate the quest.
Weird how that works.
Yeah, you would think their handwriting would just be on the wall if you activate the quest. Anyway, I go back inside the Temple of Mila, the Mila Shrine, in order to reset the enemy movement because the enemies were placed in a bad position. And now it's time for the extremely awesome quest known as Charge Straight at Danger Without Any Fear.
Right. So we play like
I'm
capture the flag footsies with this Skullwalker and then fucking miss the wall that we were trying to break through. Um, but his save reload ends his aggro and we're able to get through the wall anyway.
Yes. People who know this map might be wondering, why am I going through this part of Sylvain Shrine first instead of going through the getting the Reswells? And or why am I going through this part of Sylvain Shrine if the intention of getting the Reswell all in one trip? And the reason I'm going to be able to get all these things in all in one trip is because turns out that if you just run like Sonic, you're completely fine.
Yeah, that was a big jump scare for me, playing this game for the first time casually. And I didn't even know how to evacuate a dungeon, so I just had to fight like 6 fucking gargoyle fights in a row. But Gordon knew it was coming and was able to just get out of dodge. And that lets the Bone Walker in here spawn a little differently so that we can get behind him and get through to the res wells. Whereas if we had like evacuated and re-entered, we wouldn't be able to. So Python gets the res wells for 2 different maps coming up.
And now we need to use the gold mark that we just got in this is Sylvain Shrine in order to get the Python to get the killer bow. Python needs 8 speed, even though he had 9. With the +3 killer bow strat, we only need an 8 speed Python in order to double the enemy snipers and bonite. Sorry, enemy snipers and archers in the next map, which is really nice.
Right, we're not doubling the Bonite because that thing has 8 base speed.
Yeah. What we do instead is we have to writer's band him down.
The maps that Python needs the res well for, by the way, are Tatara, Sluice Gate, and Nuibawa's Abode. Because they're like 2 maps that have a lot of magic enemies from before we have any other archers on this route, so we need Python to enemy phase them.
Yeah, we're not going to get another archer on this route until we get Cliff to loop from Dreadfighter to Archer. And kinda we get Alm, but Alm's not really in. Because he doesn't have 1-5 range, he only has 1-3 range.
Right. So still good enough for mages, I guess, but not for other archers. Plus he only has 5 move, which I guess Archer Cliff is only gonna have 5 move too, or Sniper, but
Yes, he won't have the ridiculous snowball.
yeah. Sniper Cliff is also gonna have like 30 speed, so that's nice. And 30 skill, so he doesn't miss.
So, enemy Myrmidons are appearing in Grey Citadel, and I guess more to note is that the first Myrmidon is actually going to do nothing, but it's important to just rig him away so that I can have more leeway when dealing with Celica's route. Since Celica's team is a lot more annoying to rig with than Alm's team. The fewer enemies that are on the map, the harder it is to do hover rigging.
Does the RNG say like, is it affected by how many enemies have spawned, or is it just because you have to go further and further to find things to hover over?
The more enemies you've killed, the harder it is to find more things to hover over. So, like at the very end of the might have just the Temple of Mila to hover over, and you can only hover over that one. So if both of those have enemy spawning, you've got no recourse. You're just screwed.
But
So the
at least for now, we've made it safe with the forest village. Time to fill up some side quest tickers and
so what I'm doing here is I'm hunting for the person to find Mene Mene Teku Far. Apparently that guy didn't exist. He was supposed to be in House 1, but apparently he just wasn't there. And we go to the smithy. We're going to need to forge the killer bow, so we trade in the lightning sword. This is sort of forging sort of marks the beginning of the second half of the game, and sort of the forged weaponry is a lot more magic we've been using before. Tobin, for example, has sort of fallen off the map completely, whereas a unit like Clive, Matilda is sort of becoming the more useful units. And here we find out why I didn't even bother trying to name weapons. Because I'd have to, every time I do this, I'd have to reset and then go back and rename the weapon.
right. I kind of think that maybe God was looking down and saved us from having to read the name Cooler Bane for the entire rest of the LTC.
Yeah, originally I should have just taken names straight from Greek mythology. So the units like Luthier, for example, who's been like pretty okay right now, he's going to not be as good as our really strong forged weaponry users. These forged weapons are just so much more powerful than things you can get normally for other units, and it creates this weird theme whereby in SOV you start off by using mages, right? If you look at my villager promotions, I made four magic users and Cliff, who's effectively a magic user. So all five of my initial five villagers became a magic class. But if you look at the army I'm using now, I'm using a physical unit, Cliff, another physical unit, Matilda, another physical unit in Clive, another physical unit in Python. Like, those are my four main combat units now.
Right. Selling the lightning sword is also reminiscent of um in Shadow Dragon when you have to kill off one of your own units, and we kill off Jagan here.
All right, that's end of the video. See you guys next time for the Python solo.